What's good, bro? It's Louis Gusto. You know that no other city on this planet makes pastrami quite like New York. Today, we're gonna be going around to 4 spots making some of the best pastrami in the world, starting with Frankel's Delicatessen and Appetizing in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Then we'll be shooting over to David's Brisket House in Bed-Stuy, S&P Lunch in the Flatiron district, and ending at that world-famous Katz Delicatessen on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Finesse that like button and let's get some brine, smoked, spiced, and steamed beef brisket. Last time we ate here, we were doing a documentary about the Greenpoint neighborhood and we got a bagel with smoked salmon and the works. This morning though, we're getting pastrami with a little bit of a twist. That's when you say, remix my classic. It's a pastrami, egg, and cheese sandwich on a challah roll. That cheese has melted so much, it almost looks like a cheese whiz. And that pastrami is piping hot. I'm sure it's smoked, cured, and spiced up to perfection. You got the thick cut pastrami here, almost in like little chunks. Nice scrambled egg folded over several times. American cheese on top. That challah roll is looking beautiful. It's super, super soft. Bon appetit. Wow. Now this is a man's breakfast sandwich. That thick cut pastrami is amazing, but you can't forget about that scrambled egg. It's really cooked up well and the cheese brings it all together. I don't often eat challah bread. I've been wanting to, I just don't know how to bake it myself. And around where we live in Bushwick, there's not really a lot of options for challah bread. Thankfully over in Greenpoint, we know we can hop over on the G train normal, and get us the pastrami, egg, and cheese sandwich. So good. Funny enough, I don't think I've seen any other place in New York put pastrami, egg, and cheese together on a sandwich. Maybe they do, I just have never heard of it. Every time we go out to get pastrami, it's placed on that traditional rye bread. I'm glad we started this way, and hey, I highly recommend this sandwich. This gets my patented 5 out of 5 diamonds. Everything about this sandwich is perfect. It's definitely a blue chip breakfast sandwich, my boys.
Get it in the good lighting. This is so good.
We are now in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn at David's Brisket House to try that pastrami on rye sandwich, which is offered in 3 sizes, small, large, but we went with medium, just the classic way, a little bit of mustard, some pickles on the side, kind of in the middle slices, not too thin, not too thick. Got some nice soft rye bread on there, little bit of mustard, no other toppings on this one. Can see some fat there. The edges are nice and peppery. All right, let's go. The pastrami at Frankel's on the egg and cheese sandwich was thick cut and it was a little bit dry because everything else on that sandwich melted in your mouth, the eggs and the cheese. Now this pastrami melts in your mouth. You got the soft, dry rye bread holding it together, thin and thick slices, all stacked high with the mustard. This one's a very spicy pastrami. The other one tasted a little bit smokier to me. Maybe it's just a combo with the eggs and the cheese. It's a lot of meat, which is great. The bread itself is nice and soft, so together it makes for a very easy to eat sandwich. It's not too much pastrami. We could have gone extra large if we weren't gonna stop at 2 other pastrami spots in New York City today. Look at that beautiful marbling of the pastrami meat, a little bit of fat on the end. It's a generous helping with that mustard in there. That's that spicy deli mustard. Very soft rye bread. Good little edges right here. A few things are important when you want a classic pastrami sandwich. Number one, obviously that meat's gotta be brined, spiced, smoked, and steamed up to perfection. You need the good rye bread. Sometimes they serve you rye bread that's a little bit past its prime. Not the case here. This rye bread is nice and fresh, super soft, just enough spice to complement the pastrami meat. As far as toppings, you could put mayonnaise, you could put cheese, sauerkraut, Thousand Island dressing. Maybe we'll do that a little bit later today. We want to go classic after having that egg, cheese, and challah pastrami sandwich. And of course, you can't forget about those pickled cucumbers. Mmm, nice and sour. All in all, this is a phenomenal pastrami sandwich. Somewhat underrated. You're not gonna see this on everybody's list. You know, it's your boy. I take you around New York City for some of the deep cut restaurants like David's Brisket House here in Bed-Stuy. As you can see, we thoroughly enjoyed this pastrami sandwich at David's Brisket House. Obviously, as the name implies, they make brisket too. There's roast beef, corned beef. Unlike other pastrami spots in New York City, they don't serve it cold. This is house-made pastrami served up piping hot. You can see the steam coming off of it, which makes the bread just a little bit softer. Actually, you know what would be even better is if they had like a little dip on the side, kind of like an Italian beef, but with pastrami. That's why we wanted to come here above some of the other pastrami spots which serve it up cold, almost like a boar's head deli sandwich. To me, this is the way to go. We are in the Flatiron district at S&P Lunch, one of the last old school Manhattan lunch counters that's been around over 100 years, has changed ownership 7 times since it first existed as S&P. Most recently, it was known as Eisenberg's before it went out of business during the pandemic, but then the owners of Court Street Grocers came to revamp this space, but they didn't really revamp it. They just kind of polished off the edges a little bit, put some duct tape and whatnot, and opened up S&P Lunch right here on 22nd, just south of the Flatiron building. It's a no-frills space with the old school decor, wood grain on the walls. They have all sorts of Jewish delicacies on the menu, including potato latkes and matzo ball soup. But today we're here for the pastrami, so I ordered the S&P regular, which is pastrami, cherry peppers, Russian dressing, all on a club roll. I also got my iced coffee, hashtag no cream, no sugar. What you thought? Oh yeah. This is the S&P regular sandwich. It is nice thick cut pastrami, jagged cut looks like, with the comeback sauce, basically like a Russian dressing. There's some cherry peppers, all on a club roll. Got a little bit of cornmeal on the bottom, that black edge of the pastrami showing that spice. Let's go.
So how much money do you have to win?
Wow. I noticed this pastrami was cut a lot thicker than David's Brisket House, and it has a lot more fat on it, so it's very melty. The club roll is good. It's not the best bread in the world. The pastrami, I noticed, is also very spiced. You can see the edges where they just rub that spice on, and it comes through. Combined with the cherry peppers, it makes for a very spicy sandwich. Not where you need like a glass of milk or it feels like a ghost pepper or something like that, but definitely spicier than your average pastrami sandwich. Try this pickle. With the pickle on the side, it makes a perfect combo for lunch here at S&P. This is now the 3rd different way we're having pastrami, and I gotta say, every one of them is correct. It definitely has a bouncy chew, a lot more fat, it's melty, and there's a lot more spice on this one. So makes for a great sandwich. I would definitely recommend this pastrami.
She felt like I didn't. She knew so much about me.
We're now in Cooper Square, headed to our next pastrami establishment. So far today, we've had some of the finest pastramis in all of New York City. Started with Frankel's, that egg cheese pastrami on a challah roll. We had the David's Brisket House out in Bed-Stuy, traditional pastrami on rye with some deli mustard and a pickle on the side. We stopped by one of the oldest remaining lunch counters in New York City, S&P Lunch, now under its 7th owners. For the S&P regular, the pastrami, Russian dressing, cherry peppers on a club roll. If you enjoy videos like this where we travel and eat amazing foods, don't hate, subscribe. We are now at the Lower East Side institution, Katz Deli, serving up pastrami sandwiches since 1888. When it comes to the gold standard of pastrami, Katz is up there with the best of them. Now, a super fun piece of knowledge about pastrami, they actually used to make it with goose meat over in Europe. But when the Romanian Jews came to New York City, they found that goose meat was just a little bit too pricey, which shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. I mean, look at the prices at Canada Goose. They decided to go with the cheaper option, which at the time was beef, and thus a New York City classic was born. We wanted to go with the standard classic, the Reuben. At Katz, it's just gonna be a little bit more pricey than other spots in New York City. Is it a value budget option? Probably not. But when it comes to the most delicious, the most juicy, the most delectable, meaty pastrami that you can find in the Big Apple, you really can't do any better than Katz. As the world applauds for this beautiful sandwich. We got that really thick cut pastrami. Now I cut it a couple of different ways and stack it super high on the sandwich. Some Swiss cheese, and you also have some sauerkraut and Russian dressing, but I think they call it Reuben dressing here. The nice soft rye bread on there. This is the type of sandwich that you would see in a Looney Tunes cartoon when they stack it super, super high. You need big hands like me, squeeze it down to take that bite. I took the biggest bite that I could of that sandwich to really get a combination of everything. The bread, the coleslaw, the dressing, and the 2 cuts of pastrami. I gotta say right off the bat, compared to all the other pastrami that we've had today, this is the meatiest, it's the chewiest, and the juiciest. It's hotter, I think because they pull it right out of the steamer and cut it up for you fresh. To be honest, I thought the sauerkraut, Swiss cheese, and Russian dressing was gonna really take away from that flavor and enjoyment of the pastrami, but they actually all work together to enhance the flavor. Now, the downside of the sandwich is it starts to fall apart just because there's so much going for it, and the rye bread isn't quite that strong. It's still delicious though. Most definitely, Katz is one of those rare spots that lives up to the hype 100%. Now, is it a little pricey? Sure, at $30 for a pastrami Reuben. Like I said, not the best value in the city, but for the atmosphere, taste, flavor, and texture of this pastrami, you really can't go wrong. 30 bucks, it's not like investing in a Roth IRA for the year or something like that. New York City, iconic food. Bro, that was some good pastrami today. Don't hate, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.